Hello everybody. This is installment 3 of Open G Possibilities. I guess I'm calling it Possibilities just because I'm just kind of giving you some ideas, some things I've learned on Open G tuning on guitar. If you have your guitar with you, hopefully you're tuned to Open G, and that's D, G, B, G, B, and then another D. So if you're starting in the middle here, go back and watch the first 2 videos and kind of easing into it. Last time we ended up doing some extensions on the bar here. Let's start with the bar. The one I did, we did the add 9. You can come up and take a look at that. And so that's that. If this is sort of the bar, this is like a B flat here we're doing. And if I add, this is the add 9. We did that last time. It's the add 9. Here's a 7. Regular 7. We can do a 7 here or 7 here. And then the major 7 is 1 fret up. So there's one there and there's one there. And I'll show you, kind of review, I'll show you the kind of the map of what that was. There's the add 9. You're barring across here and picking that up. The 7, it's barring, you're barring across and picking up 3 frets up. Either this one or here, actually, you could pick up, that's that high 7. We also did the major 7, which I showed you, barring across and picking up this 7, natural 7 here, or I think it's called natural 7. And then also I showed this way of doing it. Here's the chart. This is kind of a backwards way. This is a way of using the lowest string as the root. So if I'm playing this chord right here, if this is an F on the D string, this is an F, then that's the root for this, and this is that chord, and I'm picking up this, and I'm using my pinky to cover these 3. Whoops. I'm picking these up. Now you'll notice with Open G, I'm using my pinky a lot. I'm picking up these extensions here. Here's a minor 7. You're using your pinky a lot. At first that feels like something that it's going to be difficult. But if you remember, like anything when you're first learning guitar, it's you're like, okay, I'm learning that D chord, and you're having to figure out. You're thinking about where my fingers go, and it takes a long time, and then finally you get it and you strum that chord. And the next time someone says, okay, play D, it takes a second. And after a while you learn, you get faster at it. It's like walking, when you're walking, the first thing you're doing is just trying to figure out how to stand up, and then you're like, okay, how do I move? And you have to concentrate on, okay, I'm moving my foot and I'm transferring my balance here. You have to be very conscious of all these little steps. But eventually, you learn to walk, and you don't think about each step. You're thinking about, okay, I want to go over there, and everything else kicks in. It's the same with reading. You first, you don't know what it is, and you're learning these symbols, and they're letters, and soon you learn that these letters and groups create words, and then and then as you learn to read, pretty soon you're seeing whole sentences theoretically. But it's the same with guitar. Anything that you're trying to learn, and it feels like, wow, how can I get my fingers to do that? Just keep trying. Eventually it gets pretty easy. All right, so those are a couple chords. There's a couple, so these will be new. I'm going to play these today. I didn't show you a diminished chord. And for those of you who are kind of wondering what a diminished chord is, a diminished chord is, or at least from my understanding, is a chord where you have your root. A normal chord has a root and a third and a fifth, and that's how you build a chord. A diminished chord, the third and the fifth are flatted. They're flatted down like 1 fret. So what you're doing, so I kind of figured this out at eventually one day I was like, okay, well, if this is the bar and I'm trying to lower that third and the fifth, then what I have to do is actually move the bar down here and pick up the roots here. So this is a C. This is a C chord. And this is a C diminished. So I'm still playing the roots here, but the fifth, these fifths, and this third, and the other fifth are flatted. So that's the diminished chord, and I don't know. It's a weird chord. I've used it in a couple of things. We have a song called No Comprende, where I'm doing a kind of a D minor, and then a C, and then a C sharp diminished, leading back up into that D. And you'll hear that in music. Diminished chords are used kind of in weird ways. You hear it more in jazz. You know, you can hear that. That's kind of a familiar movement you hear in jazz. I don't know exactly what's going on there theory-wise, but it's music. So that's a diminished chord. The great thing about diminished chords is they repeat every 3 frets. You're just turning the chord around. This is all, you know, every 3 frets. If you're playing a diminished chord, oh wait, that's a major 7. Playing a diminished chord, every step and a half, it's repeating itself. It's just taking those same 3 notes and turning it around. So those are just different voicings of the same exact chord. Anyway, weird little trick. Okay, oops. And one thing I realized I kind of didn't explain very well was this E7 shape. I kind of showed the E7, which is the bar chord here. A lot of times when I'm playing kind of this shape or this chord, wherever it is I'm playing, I'm kind of relying heavily more on the lower strings, and I'm kind of just muting these high ones. So you're just getting kind of roots and fifths there. But if you want to pick up some fancy stuff on the top there's the 7, and it's just picking that. And then, like we talked about earlier, here's the major 7. But there's one way to do 7. But if you want to kind of get that full chord without any 7s or actually even a third, it's kind of like that. Okay, I think I had maybe. Oh yeah. Before I move from major 7s, here's one more way to voice a major 7, or to fret a major 7, and it's kind of like the weird minor. Minor, I'd had the kind of picking up this note, and then once up there, but this is this one. So if that's B flat, it would be this one here. So it's basically the bar, except I'm picking this major 7 up. So it's kind of it's a little trashy to fret, but it works out. Okay. All right. So the next thing I wanted to kind of show you guys is when you go, you know, it's one thing to kind of get an idea of these structures, these chords, and you know, different extensions and sort of the extra little color and kind of variation that they can put on a chord. And you can experiment with, like, okay, well, start moving around, start playing kind of different kind of chords and hearing how they work together. You know, and there is kind of a pattern. There's a pattern or a structure kind of underneath. You're gonna have to forgive me. My terminology is a little off for a lot of this stuff, but I call it the mode or modal. So modal scales, and what it is there's this pattern, and I'll show it to you here. A lot of times when you see, you know, people improvising, and you know, okay, we're playing in this key, and blah 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 blah, and you know, a person knows what key to play and what notes to play. What they're doing is basically they understand sort of the structure, and there's a map on here, and it shifts depending on what key or what chords you're working with. And it shifts, you know, and kind of sort of indicates, well, here's notes that would work with this. And I'm going to show you this. Pattern here, and here it is, kind of mapped out in what I guess it's G minor. And there's a couple different. For those of you out there who like kind of scoffing at me because you know theory and all the terminology and stuff like that. There's a couple different minors. I call this one regular minor, which has the flatted sixth. So for those of you that are wondering. But anyway, so if you were to look at the guitar and you were playing something in G minor, you know, here's the chord, you know, here's a G minor, you know, or this. Or that. There's a couple different ways to voice G minor. And say you were playing something, you know, like kind of a blues-based thing, you know. Whoops, there's a major. So if I'm playing something that's kind of a G minor blues kind of thing, in my mind I'm picturing this map superimposed kind of on the neck, put at a spot that coincides with where G minor is going to be. And what that map does is kind of tells me like, well, these notes, yeah, get a good shot of this, and you'll have to screenshot this because it's something maybe you'll want to kind of look at and maybe try to memorize. But so for example, if you were playing in standard tuning and you were playing something in G minor, like if I was playing something right here, here's what a G minor chord would look like if I'm in standard tuning. The first sort of blues box they call the blues box or the pentatonic box, you know, where you would learn like, okay, here's the first few notes you could play as a solo in G minor. Would be it's right here. It's right next to that chord, and it's the same with open G. And what that box is right here. Instead of it being right next to your root, say here's my G. That box is right up here. So if I'm in G, that blues box or that classic one that you learn is right here. You know, that's kind of pretty much the same box as you learn. So what I'm doing is just kind of in my mind, I kind of see that that's that box. I know those notes work in that key, and you kind of just play them. And sometimes you get, you know, if you're playing with other people or maybe you record a loop or something that you can play along to, you kind of just start messing around with that. And you kind of just find your own thing, you know, maybe certain music that you listen to starts, you know, maybe that'll start creeping into your phrasing and the kind of the things that you want to do. And, you know, you don't need to really think about it. It's not something you got to intellectualize and be like, okay, I'm going to go to the G and then I'm going to go up to the blah, 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 blah. A lot of it's just kind of like, well, I know this territory and I know I can step here and I can step here and I should maybe stay away from stepping here. And at a certain point, you just kind of let yourself go. And it's maybe cautious at first, but, you know, eventually you kind of need to let yourself kind of see it as almost like you're dancing. You know, you don't know where you're going to put your foot as much as you sort of know the parameters of where you could put your foot and safely be able to hang there while you figure out where you're going to put your foot next. You know, so what happens is you end up just kind of habitually kind of playing the phrase, playing different phrases or playing over that pattern, you know. And as you can see, this pattern expands. It expands down here and it gets up in here. So, you know, if I'm playing, you know, and I know that scale comes up here and there's a pattern, there's a box right here. You know, that's kind of fun. Because you can kind of form some stuff in there. And I know my G's back up there. So there's a couple different places you can move, a couple different boxes. So that's cool. And this pattern, you're seeing sort of what's above the chord. And now I'll show you the map for B minor. And B minor, you know, the pattern basically is the same, except I'm starting here instead. And there's because that's a B, and this is the B minor. And you can see here's G minor. This structure, this map, this thing right here is the same thing that's happening right here. It's the same pattern. So I know this pattern that I know in my head, you know, that I know from G, it's the same pattern. And if I'm playing B here, if I'm playing B minor, I know that same pattern. That same pattern that I had in G minors is now up here. But now there's an interesting pattern that happens right here. If I'm playing B, if you look at the map here, there's kind of a there's a really cool kind of area right here that happens, and I like this. I like this part of the map myself. So if this is B, and you're playing something in B minor, and see you got your relative chords, or D and E and A, but there's this. B minor here, but in all the notes, all the open notes work in that minor key. So it's just kind of a nice box, and over the years I've built up sort of just some quirky habits about phrasing in that one. So, and ultimately the idea. What? It's 117. 117? Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm almost done. All right. So once you kind of learn these patterns a little bit and kind of expand and see the whole thing, you can kind of build your own ideas. It'll also give you ideas of possible chords. You know, like if I'm playing something in B minor and I want to move down to the A, I know I can play A major, and I can also do an add 9. So that note works, you know, it works in the key. If I want to play, you know, a D chord, I know because of this map that it probably will sound more fitting with the chord if I play a major 7 instead of this note here. If I'm playing a D, I know because of this pattern that I would play this note instead of this one. You know, again, these are rules that they're supposed to break, you know, but it's a good start. So anyway, I guess that's kind of all I was gonna do this time, is just kind of show you this pattern, kind of get you started. Again, I can't stress enough that you know, really the most interesting things in music happen when you're kind of bending those rules, and once you see that there is sort of a pattern and a you know, I mean, keep in mind, like the musical scale that we're used to, that we kind of assume that some person just came up with one day, it actually coordinates with the mathematics of the planets going around the sun. There's a reason that we resonate and that we gravitate towards those intervals, and that combination of vibrations that can create harmony and can create all these many colors and these many vivid, you know, communicate, you know, these vivid vibrations of combinations, you know, and it's because our solar system, our universe are made up of these ratios and these frequencies. So it's in you, you know. You pick up an instrument and just start making sounds, and your whole being knows how to make music and is screaming to make music. So just let yourself do that. Even just the simplest notes and a couple things and a couple chords will really, you know, if you listen, it'll really tap into that for you. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. If anybody has any really burning questions, go ahead and go over to the Low the Band Twitter and ask me, and maybe I'll do a follow-up on this someday. But anyway, have fun, and Yeah, I better stop now.